We are back. Valentine's Day was in the past. It was good.
February is like,
Dude,
over.
it's almost a wrap, which is crazy because next month is March.
How many? Okay.
What?
29, 30. It's only like 3 days shorter than every other month. Two
crazy.
days, 3 days, but it feels so much shorter every
It's
time.
crazy.
It feels like it has like a whole week less.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it is nuts, huh? Wild. Mm-hmm. Well, we are on episode 3 of our series. We are excited about this series, this collection of messages. It's so key for us as a couple to do multiple things, to be intentional about multiple things, to keep our marriage alive, vibrant, and to go the distance.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why we titled it A Love Marked by Giving. And if you are like me, I would rather
Be receiving?
I would rather
I
get
love marked by receiving.
a love marked by receiving by my wife. But that's not what this is all about.
That's not what we're called
That's
to
not, no, not at all. Giving is always better. It is. It just is.
Marriage is important. It's an important part of our world. It's important to God. It's the way that He designed us to create families and to be bonded by love, to create commitments to each other and to Him. It's important. And we know a whole lot of married people. We know a whole lot of divorced people. We know, just in this world, in this country, especially, it's a prominent thing. It's also something that is viewed in so many different ways, right? Like we watch movies, we watch TV shows, we see our family and how it's handled marriage. We see our friends and their families. And so we see marriage in so many different ways because we are people and people are different and things are going to look different. But there are descriptions in the Bible where God has told us, like, this is what it should look like. This is the best plan for you in it. And if you are going to have this healthy, vibrant marriage that is growing the way that I intended you to, these might be a good idea, right? Like, this is how it should work. For a lot of people, we've never been through divorce ourselves.
No, haven't.
But we have so many friends and family members and people who have.
Yeah.
And I've never heard any of them say that it was easy. Yeah. Right? That
no,
it was
absolutely.
Like, this is the best choice I ever made. It's so easy and I can't, it's never been that. It's always been a hard road. There are absolutely times when it's necessary, when divorce is necessary. I'm not saying that it's not at all. But for most of us in our relationships, there's usually a way back to finding a way that is healthy and fulfilling and good, and there's purpose in it, right? So anyway, we've talked the last few weeks about being a team, right? That your marriage should be a team.
That's huge. We started with that episode 1 for a reason, because man, we believe that marriage is what? A team. We're one unit. And
it's a common goal.
It's a common goal. And for us, we struggled with this. We were playing opposites for a very long time, competing against each other. Which one is better? It's so silly, but that's what we do, right? We cut the other one down instead of lifting the other one up to encourage them. And that's where being a team, man, there's things that Monica brings, there's things that your spouse brings into your life, your world, that only they can bring, that you don't have. Maybe it's some gifts or talents that God has blessed them with, and you feel like you should have those gifts, right? Where it's like, oh no, I should be good at this. When it's like, accept it, because when Monica wins, I win. And when I'm winning, she's losing.
No.
Just joking. She's winning too. She's winning too. And so you got to remember that you're a team. Mm-hmm. You're one unit. You're working for the common goal. Yeah. And the second week, man, we talked about just being a safe spot for your spouse. Can your spouse come to you? Can they bring all of their stuff, the messiness, their goodness, the things that they struggle with? Can they bring that to you without judgment? Can
they trust you?
Yes.
Do you trust them?
Yes.
Can you fully be yourself with each other, right? Can you actually show up day by day and be 100% your true self and still be loved by your spouse? Do you still love them for being their whole true self? And if you feel like you're lacking in intimacy or closeness and things that you wish that you had, that might be a good place to start to look. Like, are you on the same team? Yeah. Are you fully safe and accepting for them? Do you trust each other? Because when you have all of those things, it becomes so much easier, so much more rewarding, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
To be.
Absolutely.
In this relationship. And I think that once we kind of have those things under wraps, once we figure out that we are in fact a team and we start to look at our own strengths and weaknesses and we start appreciating each other for who we are, and once we feel safe and like we can trust each other and this is feeling good and solid, that brings us to this week and what we want to talk about. And that's protecting that marriage, right? Once you build it up, like any other precious thing in your life that you've worked hard for, right? Because those things take a lot of work. This is hard. It doesn't come totally easy, right? But this is the most precious relationship in our lives. Chris is the most important person on this earth to me.
Yep.
And so if I truly believe that, and if I've worked so hard to make all of these things work and to strengthen this and to build it up, then naturally, don't you want to protect it, right? You build up your bank account, right? You build up your job security. You build up all of these things. Like we build this house and then you want to put an alarm system on it and you want to protect it, right? You don't want somebody to come in and just swoop in and snatch it up. And so often we don't do that with our marriage. We just assume that it's going to keep working because we have chemistry, right? Because it's my soulmate. Like it's just supposed to happen. This should be easy. It doesn't work like that though. It requires protection. It requires work. It requires you building it up, and then it requires you to protect it.
There's so much goodness in Ephesians 5. This is the anthem, the verse that we've been going over in this whole series. I want to read it to you. It says this, Ephesians 5, 25 through 28. It says, husbands, go all out in your love for your wives, exactly as Christ did for the church, a love marked by giving, not getting. Christ's love makes the church whole. His words evoke her beauty. Everything he does and says is designed to bring out the best out of her, dressing her in dazzling white silk, radiant with holiness. And that is how husbands ought to love their wives. They're really doing themselves a favor, since they're already one in marriage. We have to protect this. We do. We have to protect this. Monica and I, there was a buddy of mine, and I forget who told me this, but as we were getting married, preparing to get married, one of the happiest days of Monica's life is to get married to me. Like, it's just, one of those things. I was way more happier than she was, but I don't think that's true. Anyways, my buddy, he said that every week they did date night. And so as we were preparing to become one, to have a marriage that is going to go the distance, to have this intimacy, we grabbed a hold of that and we ran with it. And every Friday we do date night. Every Friday. And we kick our kids out. We say, get on out of here. We don't love you anymore. Right? That's what we say. We don't. That's not true. We love our kids. And the reason we do this is so that our kids can have a better life example of what true marriage is supposed to look like, all the ups and downs. But we know that in date night, there is something so special about it. We become one, right? As the verse says, like, you're already one, right? So protect it. Do what you can to keep this thing awesome, amazing, fruitful. And I think for us as husbands, this verse, there's a lot in there that we can grab a hold of. Do your words evoke your wife's beauty? Wives, do your words evoke your husband's beauty? Like, there's so much to that. And we as a culture, we don't love giving compliments. Like, we actually think it's called weakness every time we throw out a compliment. But your compliments, your encouragement, man, it could go the distance. And so many of us, like, this life where we're unwilling to give compliments, we actually think God is similar, where he's not proud of us, where he's not going to say, good job, Chris, you did it. Where he's our biggest cheerleader. And us today, we want you to protect your marriage. We want you to be the example for your kids, for others. How do you protect your marriage? How do you protect your marriage?
I think that first thing you have to do is to figure out, what are you trying to protect your marriage from, right? You kind of have to know well, first of all, you have to figure out that your marriage is the number one priority in your life. A lot of us get this kind of twisted and backwards, right? Especially if we have kids. It's really easy to put your kids first. It's really easy to put your job first. It's really easy to put your spouse last, basically. It's really easy to think, well, they're going to be there no matter what. So, well, I'm going to run myself ragged. I'm going to work extra long. I'm going to take care of this and that. I'm going to take care of our house. I'm going to take care of the kids. I'm going to do everything. And then if I have an extra 5 minutes to chill with my spouse, cool, whatever. Like, see you next Tuesday, right? Like, it's for a lot of us, it's very easy just to kind of put everything else first and to put that thing last because it feels like it's a for sure bet. Like, whatever, they're going to be here.
You take it for granted.
You do.
You really do.
But the reality is that, yeah, they're going to be there night and day, but is it going to feel good night and day, right? Like, are you going to enjoy their company or their presence? And the reality is that if you're putting this last all the time, it's not going to be enjoyable, right? You're not going to build a strong bond. You're not going to want to put each other first. In 1 Corinthians, it says, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with the truth. It always protects, it always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. Love and marriage, it needs to protect, right? You need to have that hope, that perseverance. According to kind of what the Bible says, that this should be the first priority in your life. Well, God is first, right? You put God first.
That's right.
Your marriage second. Your kids should be third, and your job should be last, right? And that's even if your job is in ministry, right? So many of us think that, oh, well, I'm putting God first. Well, no, you're not. That's your job. That's different than putting God first, right? So you put your God first, marriage second, kids third, job last. That's a hard thing to do. It doesn't come naturally, right? And we think, well, I have to put my job first. I'm trying to provide for my family. I'm trying to provide for my kids because they're the most important thing. Because, whatever that looks like. And it's hard. You get those things kind of mixed up. But the reality is that if you're putting God first and your marriage second, your kids and your job will be okay, because you're going to be okay. The healthier you are, the better you can do at all of these things. And if this isn't right and this isn't right, nothing else is going to play out right? When you have that turmoil in your soul, the tension in your soul, and the tension in your marriage, like everything else feels hard. So putting the priorities in order and then protecting those priorities is a big deal. The things that we're protecting our marriage from, you kind of have to figure that out, like I said. So what are we protecting this priority from? We're protecting it from unfaithfulness. We're protecting it from your kids, from yourself, from your extended family. We're protecting your time, right? And you're protecting it from work. So I want to kind of talk about some of those things. The unfaithfulness, protecting your marriage from unfaithfulness. That's the first thing that pops up into a lot of our heads, right? Oh, you have to protect your marriage, which means you need to keep outside, boundaries up to protect you from affairs, to protect you from infidelity, right? All of those things, because if you're telling yourself right now that, that would never happen to us, you're fooling yourself. It could happen to anybody unless you are aware that it can happen, unless you are diligent and putting up boundaries and putting things in place to protect yourself from it.
That's right. And we say this all the time with it. It's like, it has a lot to do with your calendar.
Yeah.
Like that, your calendar should dictate everything you do in life. You'll realize whatever is a priority, you'll put on the calendar. We always put our date night on the calendar. Like, if you call me on a Friday night, I'm probably not going to answer. Sorry. I'll call you the next day. But I make it a priority because that's my time with my wife. Like, I want to make sure that she is just vibrant and that she knows that I'm here to protect her, that I'm not going anywhere, that I'm going to put in the work to make this happen. Right. And you can't be foolish with it. You have to put boundaries up. Don't be with another lady all by yourself, because guess what? Somehow your clothes are going to fall off. Right? Like it's so interesting. We think, oh, how did this affair happen? Like, man, it happened so quickly. No, it
doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen quickly. Things arise, and then you give into one thing, you give into another thing, and then poof. Right?
Well, here's the deal. Unfaithfulness happens. It starts here, right? Yeah. It starts with a feeling of dissatisfaction, right? Of feeling unseen, unheard. Yep. There's some kind of void, some kind of emptiness, loneliness, disconnection, something going on here. So if we haven't done all the work that we talked about the last couple of weeks of being actually intimate and knowing each other and all of those things, this is going to be really hard to do, because then the first time that you go out, you're at work, you're wherever, and you have a conversation with somebody else, and they're actually listening to you when your spouse doesn't, right? They're actually giving you the compliment that your spouse doesn't give you. They're actually seeing you for who you are. They're hearing you, and you feel like, oh, wow, I'm being heard for the first time in so long. And like, this person understands me and they're willing to listen to me. And you have all these conversations, and you start having this emotional connection, right? This spiritual connection, all of these things, where you're actually being more intimate with this person, having more intimate conversations than you ever would with your spouse. And before you know it, like, all of those lines start to get blurred, and then they continue to progress. And then this space between you and your spouse continues to get bigger and bigger. And the space starts to close in between you and these other people, right? And if you think that this would never happen to you, that it's not true, none of these things, and you just completely blow it off and you never put up these boundaries, you're going to find yourself in some weird situations, right? We used to have a pastor that we thought it was a little extreme, but honestly, it caused us to think, right? He had things in place where it was like, okay, anybody on staff, they're not going to go have lunch with somebody of the opposite sex by themselves. He wouldn't go in a car with like his assistant, who was a female, to the airport by himself. He wouldn't do any of those things because it was like, I don't want to even be in the position where I'm having these kinds of conversations with anybody else but my wife, right? Because those little things start to creep in. There's always going to be, no matter how solid our marriage is, there's going to be cracks in there. There's going to be things like, I'm not a perfect person. Really close, but Chris,
far from.
I know it's hard to believe. It's not a perfect person, right?
Are you serious?
I know that there are things about me that Chris probably wishes were a little different, right? There are probably things where he's like, man, I wish that, whatever it is. And
right.
You're always going to find somebody else who like, I wish that maybe like Chris didn't talk so much. And so maybe I could find someone that's a little quieter. Just kidding. That's not the truth.
No, you're not kidding.
Kind of the truth.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
But you can find that.
Hey, you're not kidding.
That's a silly thing, but there are deep things that people will think and they'll feel like,
she would rather be married to a rock. It won't talk back.
Chris wishes, I'm sure, that I would vocalize my feelings more or encourage him more, right? And so it's like,
you know what? Can you know what? Contact her and let her know, like, hey, it's really not that hard. Like, you just say, hey, Chris, you're good looking. I love
the
you.
reality is that if it wouldn't be that hard for him to be hanging out talking to somebody else and for them to encourage him or to give him a compliment and for him to be like, hey, like that feels nice. And my wife doesn't do that, right? So it's like, it's so easy, these little things where he could all of a sudden feel like
so subtle.
So much discontentment between us and so much like, because it's this one tiny thing, right, that you're missing and you can find it somewhere else pretty easily even if you're not trying, right? And so that's where we're saying, like, it's not because you're a total animal and you can't control yourself.
No.
It's just there are going to be things, little tiny things missing in your marriage that you can very easily find somewhere else. And you're going to think it's the key to all of your happiness, right? And you're going to be like, ooh, I found this one thing that felt so good. I bet they have everything else that I need in my life. And I'm going to jump ship here.
Right.
And it turns into this snowball effect, right?
Yep.
So it's super important to actively protect your marriage from unfaithfulness. No matter how strong you think you are or what that looks like, you have to be actively protecting it from unfaithfulness. You have to set up your boundaries, and you guys are the only ones that know what those boundaries should be.
Yep.
That will work for you.
You have to protect it. You really do. That's that's one of the things that we definitely don't want to ever fall into. Mm-hmm. And it's a struggle. Like you just don't know, right? You don't know. And if you do think like that won't ever happen to me, woo, that's a red flag, first and foremost.
The second thing that you have to protect yourself from, which sounds bizarre, but is your kids. We
we do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you do? Give them the boot. Like, look...
some barriers there.
Here's the craziest part about that is we think we always have to be like doing everything with our kids. Well, what about our kids? And what about this? And like even date night, there's some like whenever we have conversations, we let people know about this if they ask or whatever. But it's like, dude, our kids are better off if we are away from them. Because at some point when 18 comes, we're kicking them out and they're going to be on their own, right? Like they're going to have to figure it all out. Like, oh no, well, my parents were there the whole time and they can creep in. Like it's real subtle too. Like all this stuff is real subtle and you have to be aware of it.
Yeah. So important to get away by yourselves and do things alone. And there are so many people, mostly moms, that feel so guilty. Like there's an actual term called mom guilt, right? Because they feel guilty about doing things without their kids. And I remember we went out to eat with some of our friends once and we were talking about this. And she was saying this. She's like, I always feel guilty like not bringing our kids if we go out to eat and stuff like that. And I was like, why? Like, your kids don't even like going out to eat. Our kids hate it.
Have you ever gone to a restaurant with your kids and they're like, yeah, this is amazing. It's the worst time ever.
The whole time we're sitting there, our kids are like, when are we going to leave? Are you guys almost done? Like, I don't like anything on the menu. I don't really want this.
Terrible.
You pay like $10 for them
Terrible.
to eat 2 French fries off their plate. And that's like, it's the most ridiculous thing. They do not care about going out to eat. They are not enjoying the atmosphere or sitting still at a table and like, they don't care about that. Like, and they're not going to remember you taking them on all the vacations or doing all the things. And so it's important to, and especially when your kids are small and you're not well rested, right? You're tired. You are constantly have someone in your arms. You're trying to just eat a hot meal, right? You are interrupted in every single conversation that you have, and things are stressful, right? Like you're working, you're being parents, you're doing all of these things. And so for us, especially when our kids were really little, like going out of town or like even staying at a hotel here in town for 2 nights. It was like the most refreshing thing where it was like, oh, I remember you. Like, I actually like you. I have fun with you sometimes. Like, I remember having fun. Like, that's cool.
Dude,
like,
it is the greatest thing ever.
Part of life is so hard sometimes when your kids are tiny. Like, things are hard and you're constantly like, your wheels are always turning. You're unrested, right?
Absolutely.
So, gotta get away with your spouse, and you have to protect it yourself from your little heathens.
Those little rascals, those little nuggets. I mean, they could be savages, right? Here's
they can also
thing.
be. Sorry,
my wife's gonna cut me off, so go ahead.
I was just gonna say they can also be really awesome. It's not just because your kids are all so stressful. Like they're really freaking cute too. And like it's fun to take them places and to see life through their eyes and to be like, oh man, look at them at the beach for the first time, touching the sand, touching the water, getting in the wave. Like it's so much fun. And it's super cool, like to do all of the things. And for when they taste food, for the like all of that stuff is a blast. But then you also have to remember to see your husband or your wife through those eyes too, and to remember like we also have needs that need to be met. We can't just fully absorb ourselves in like this, in what our kids are doing. It's fun to take them to soccer and see them score a goal. It's so much fun to be parents, right? It's not all terrible things where you need to, get rid of your kids. But it's a lot of fun, and you can absorb yourself in it and be like, look at us, we're great parents. Yeah. But are we still great spouses?
Monica, you said this over and over again, but if we're not right, our kids aren't right. Like, that's just what it is. We all know that. We've all seen it. We all have grown up in a household where we've seen scenarios where it's like, oh man, yeah, that wasn't good. Like, I want to get out of here. Right? We've all, we know that occurs, but it's protecting that, right? It's protecting unfaithfulness. It's protecting yourself from your kids. It's also protecting yourself from yourself. That's huge. Like, you just gotta, you gotta put your selfishness away. You gotta realize, like, what is my agenda in this? How can I serve? It's just, you gotta protect it. Right?
And even kind of like, this kind of crosses over to kids and yourself, but so often I think that we feel like we're missing something here that then we try to fulfill ourselves in our kids, right? Because it's more about me again. Like, okay, well, I don't feel like loved, and like, my husband's not here snuggling with me. I'll snuggle with my kids. I'll, whatever it is, like they love me unconditionally. He always wants something from me, things like that, where it's like you start to find all your fulfillment in being a parent because you don't feel fulfillment in your marriage anymore. You can do this with, like you said, protecting yourself from yourself, or protecting your marriage from yourself. Yourself is going to be your own worst enemy because we are by nature selfish creatures, right? We just are. It's survival.
So it's a human condition.
You're always trying to figure out, like, how can I advance? How can I evolve? How can I survive? What am I going to do to protect myself? Right? This is what we talked about week 1 when we talked about being a team, right? And it's like, so you can't look at yourself as an individual anymore. You are one. You are a team.
That's what you signed up for. That's what marriage is.
You have to protect yourself from yourself and your own selfish thoughts and your own selfish desires and all of those things. Which includes your extended family, right? You didn't come into this marriage as an individual person. You brought along a bunch of people with you. In my case, I brought a lot of people.
Dude, nobody told us that.
Chris brought a few.
I would have reconsidered. No, I'm joking. It's so true. And these are boundaries. You have to protect yourself from this. Like, unfortunately, there's only 24 hours on a Christmas day, a Thanksgiving day. And if you have 2 families, Her side has 18 separate different families. You got to figure that out. And somebody's going to get hurt for the first couple years. Yeah. Somebody's going to get butt hurt. Somebody, I don't know if I should say that. But where we feel the pain. But we also feel the pain of like, hey, here's the reality. We'll come to your house tomorrow.
Right.
Like, it's cool. Like, we're going to hit your house up, but just give us some time.
Right.
Right? Like, you got to put up boundaries. You got to protect this family you created, right? Like, you're supposed to leave your father and mother, and you are creating your own family. So here's what happens is you got to have a conversation with your extended family. You have to have a deep conversation with your spouse. And that's all the stuff that can get you guys to this spot of intimacy where you guys are able to be transparent and protect yourself from all that.
Absolutely. From not just the time with that, it's protecting yourself from the ideas that they think your marriage should look like, from what their opinions of your spouse from.
I do this. I say, hey, good luck. I don't care what your opinion is. Mama, I love you. But this is something that we have to do for us.
Although your mom's opinion of me is probably better than her opinion of you. I think.
My mom's watching right now, too. Mama, I love you. But that's a fact. My mama, yeah, she wishes she could still spank me sometimes. Like, just get the... No, that's not true. Anyways, not true. But to add to that, it kind of leads into the next point, which is, man, you have to protect your time. Like, time is crucial, right? Like, so the older I get, the more I realize, like, oh my word, time's running out. Yeah. I'm here for a brief moment.
Right.
Scripture says it's a mist.
Yep.
Gone. Yep. I want to make the most of my time. And I want to make the most of my time with my spouse. She is my priority. I'm going to protect my time with her because I know that's an overflow to my kids and to my friends and family, because the greatest word I've ever learned over the past 12 years is no. Yeah. I say that often. It took me so long to figure that out because I love to people please. Like, I'm like, oh, I can make it work. And it damaged our relationship. It just shows a lot of flaws within me. And the more I can say no, I'm going to say yes to the things that actually matter, the things that are a priority, which is God first and foremost, my marriage second, my kids, and then my job. That's it. And that's it.
In all of these things too, you have to understand, if you haven't read or know about the love languages, there's a book called 5 Love Languages. It's an amazing book. You can take a little quiz, figure out what your love language is, figure out what your spouse's love language is, and then it makes it a lot easier to understand each other. Absolutely. And to receive love from them in the way that they give it, to try to give love in the way that they receive it, all of those things. It just makes it work. So for different things are going to be more important to you. For me, quality time is a big deal. And so protecting your time, to me, that feels like a very important thing, right? And those are things that, like, we still have discussions about. This isn't a thing where you're just like, oh, this is what we do, and it always looks the same, because our lives look this different all of the time, right? Seasons. And in this season right now, we're both working from home, and protecting your time when you work from home is kind of way more tricky than it is when you're not, because when you're not working from home, okay, you leave at 8:00 and you come back at 5, and like, that's it. And so when you're home, and you can have quality time, not just time, right? When we're both at home, we have time all day together, but none of it's quality, right? None of it's like engaging, none of it's any of that. And so we've been having these conversations the last couple of weeks.
She's just been yelling at me. And then I got to explain myself over and over again. But that's
having a cutoff time of work and being able to, like, okay, if, and it's not being specific, because to him, it's different, like, because it's important to me. Like, it's like me speaking a different language to him. So I have to, like, actually fully explain, like, okay, I want you to be done working at 5:30. And it's not just be done working at 5:30 so you can run around the house and do a bunch of other tasks. Like, I'm asking that because I want you to just come hang out with me in the kitchen. Like, sit there while I cook dinner or help me cook dinner or whatever, just to be with me. Like, I just want you to be present. I don't want you to, because for Chris, sitting still isn't easy, right?
Oh, dude, it's one of those things I don't like.
But that's kind of what quality time is. And so for me, if I don't explain that fully to him and say, like, no, what I actually want from you, because for him, he's like just trying to serve, right? So it's like, well, I want to get all these tasks done for you so you don't have to do this or that. And it's like, no, I just want you to be with me, right? I just want you to sit with me and engage.
And I tell her all the time, I'll start doing that when you start encouraging me. But it is so true.
If you can't be specific, if you can't tell your spouse what you need or want, there's no chance that it's going to happen.
No.
And you can't be mad about it, right? Nope. And so
Yep.
Protecting your time looks different in different seasons of life. And so it's about continuing to have conversations, because just because we talked about something 3 years ago doesn't mean that it's still going to stand true today. It's having conversations, telling your spouse what you need or want. That's part of that protection, because otherwise you're going to just start building up these seeds of resentment. You're going to start thinking like they don't understand. You're going to start building this wedge between you. And if you want to protect this, you have to be open and honest about what you need, what you want, what bothers you, what doesn't, what you love, all of those things. That is kind of that bubble wrap of protection. It's setting your eyes on the good things and the good parts and saying, this is what we want. These are the goals that we have. This is our little protective barrier, our little bubble that we want to live in. So when you know that, both of you can do your best to provide what's needed to create that little space of protection, right?
Huge. We're gonna end with a quote. And I'm not sure where we got this quote, but this quote is so good. And it says this: protect your marriage. Don't let outsiders destroy what took years for you to build. Protect this. There's nothing greater than your marriage. Protect it from outsiders. Protect it from all these things. Protect it from unfaithfulness. Protect it from your kids. Protect it from yourself. Protect it from extended family. Protect it from your time and your work. We want you guys to be encouraged by this. We hope that there's some elements here that you can grab and that you can apply to your marriage, apply to your life, to protect it, to put up boundaries. We're going to pray for you and your marriage. You want to pray this time?
Sure.
Mama, let's go. You know what? She gonna pray for us. Let's go, honey.
God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for this community of people who come together every single week and just to try to come closer to you. I hope that this message was an encouragement to them. I pray that they heard exactly what they came here to hear today. Please put your hands all over them and their marriage. Protect them. Help them protect themselves. We love you so much. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. You know what? We're going to end on a kiss. We did side kisses because we just drank coffee, so you know how that is. Hey, join us next week for episode 4. We hope that you are encouraged. Just remember, you are loved. You belong. God loves you. Monica? Bye.